Hey, darlings. Probably she was just too nervous and tired of all this pre-wedding running. Older sister Alia was right. You can't take wedding preparations too seriously. Only your relationships are important, and a wedding for a bride, in my opinion, should be just a happy game, like a masquerade. Alia laughed, looking at the careful and serious Natasha's preparations. When years ago Alia married her husband Stas, both parents had similar facial expressions. They looked confused. How could it be? No wedding at all. Okay, someone was against their union, but both parents were considered a great couple. They got to know each other well and exchanged visits to each other's dachas. Olia, disarmed with an open smile, declared that the marriage of the couple was a celebration for the newlyweds. The bridegroom, in a bright and colorful suit, congratulated her relatives upon their departure from the registry office, and the newlyweds flew away for 2 weeks to Spain. Talking through video calls, looking at photos of paradise beaches, picturesque mountains, sweet, tan couples with glowing eyes. Parents, all with the same rare one-heartedness, forgave the young people the absence of a wedding. Why should we wait for a holiday from someone if we can arrange it ourselves? The first one voiced the obvious idea of Mama Stas, and they really arranged a wonderful romantic picnic, with candles, garden lanterns, and of course, with shish kebab, and sent photos to the newlyweds in Spain. We also live on and live on. But if Stas was the only child of his parents, then his parents had a younger daughter, Natasha. To please the desperate parents of Palilius, the second child, who had decided to raise the independent Alia, was given a second daughter of a completely different family. If Alia often seemed almost offended that she had to obey her parents for some reason, then Natasha grew up affectionate and calm, and did not like to upset those who she loved. No, she was not stupid and saw perfectly well that her mother sometimes used her concessions without hesitation, but still conceded, this is her mother. And when Natasha got married to Dima and announced this to her parents, Mom hugged her warmly. Natasha, let's arrange a real wedding for you. With a white dress, with relatives, a solemn one. Isn't it touching? Dad and I will be so pleased. Probably, Dima's parents want the same thing, and we should get acquainted with them. About Dima's parents, Natasha couldn't say anything, and announces their decision to marry. To be honest, Natasha knew them very well. They didn't want to know her better, and she was too shy to take the first step towards getting closer. Her friend Luba, who had been counting the years of family life, was calming her down. I envy you. You'll have a modern mother-in-law who lives her own life and doesn't stop you from living yours. I was very lucky. At first I was happy, silly, that my Inna Evgenevna treated me like that.
Lyubochka, shoo.
Well, you remember. I told you everything. And what now? She needs to get into literally all the little things of our life with her son. Even what color of a closet is better to order in a coupon and how to spread everything in it on shelves. Not to mention the giant plans of a vacation. Listen to her. So for this, you need to gather a whole family council. It's good that I managed to convince Lona that we are a separate family and our plans are only about us. But she doesn't give up. And all this without any complaints, with cunning, all through the same. And you will be the owner of the house yourself. The apartment is on the other side of the city. The in-laws don't need anything from you. As long as they don't touch them. It's an idol. It's quite possible that Luba is right. But Natasha was still worried. What if Dima's parents are so impartial with her because she is simply not interested in them? Does your mother say anything about me? Mama, you have a wonderful opinion. Bunny, Dima confidently reassured. In her eyes, you are a gentle blonde with a kind, easygoing character. She is very happy for me that I didn't fall for the bait of some capricious bitch. I'm quoting my mother. So from this side, you don't have to expect any unpleasant surprises in your family life. And I already told you, Bunny, I respect the opinion of my parents, but it is not decisive for me. And so it is in everything. Dima was so convinced that Natasha really calmed down. Probably she really is expecting something special from his parents. You like it too much. Most people don't even think about such nonsense, Alya convinced. She loved her younger sister very much and worried that Natasha with her character would hit the blue bumps in life. When Natasha had some difficulties, she often ran to them to Kolya. Dad doesn't understand girls' experiences. Mom will get upset and will increase all the dangers to the terrible size. And Alya will always calm down and find a positive side in any situation, or at least a positive part. Now, when the whole week remained until Natasha's wedding and all the preparations were finished, Natasha suddenly felt an indescribable fatigue and weakness, even some apathy for everything. I'm afraid that I will dance the wedding dance like a cook, Alya complained. Of course, she snorted. This is what I was talking about. All these pompous weddings are not for brides, but for the entertainment of guests. You will be so tired that you will not feel the joy of the event. But it's too late to play the game, so I don't mind anymore. I promise. But you know what? This last week, devote only to yourself, to everyone, especially to the bosses at work. Let them work themselves. They don't want to get married. If you chose a pompous holiday, you should be blind. And for this, you need to be rested, safe, and well-groomed. Yeah, the rested one first of all, Natasha agreed. I came home from work yesterday, went into the kitchen, and my mother made broth for borscht. I breathed in the smell, and my head was spinning, and it became somewhat stuffy. I hurried to the wall to lean on it. Can you imagine? Yes, it's definitely time to rest. Alya stopped in the middle of her own living room, crossed her hands on her chest, and looked suspiciously at her sister. Then she said, Wait. She went into the dressing room with the first aid kit, took out a narrow flat pack from there, and put it in Natasha's hand. A pregnancy test. When a sick person's head is spinning from the smell of the broth, it doesn't seem like fatigue. I think you can exclude the hunger and the drowsiness. You have a good appetite, as always. I saw it today. So, we need to check my version. It's a matter of life. Don't be so embarrassed and lie to your sister that you and Dima were only walking and kissing each other until today. Otherwise, I can be offended by distrust. So it turned out a week before the wedding that Natasha was pregnant. To be sure not to exclude an absurd coincidence, the ridiculous Alya found in her, the lover of roses, that it was time to settle the relationship with his mother. And your Dima decided to marry you without a serious reason and hints from your side. So, it's definitely out of love. Alya laughed, wishing to slow down her hasty sister. Alya, can I sit with you a little longer? I can't run to Dima right away. I need to get my thoughts together. If you weren't pregnant, I would be offended at you as follows. You can think that someone is chasing you away. At least you'll hear us. When you get the courage, you'll go. Or rather, you'll go. I'll call a taxi. Now you need to take care of yourself and the baby. You're a spirit. You're a push in the car. You need to. I'll be an aunt. Listen, Natasha, I'm glad. I'm very glad too. Natasha quietly called out, a little silent, as if listening to herself. Although it is surprising how it happened. We were so careful. So that was the way it should have been. The baby decided so himself, said Alya. And do not look at me with surprised eyes. Yes, I believe in such things. It's only you and your mother who think that I am such an iron lady. Alya advised his sister to call the groom that she was going to visit him. Natasha agreed to hug her at the entrance before getting into the taxi, but immediately forgot about the call. The car door didn't have time to close. She remembered that she was already halfway there and waved her hand. She had no doubt that her housekeeper Dima was home now. She listened carefully and dangerously to herself now. How could she not have guessed that another life had settled in her? She could have thought about it a week ago, but she didn't have a single thought in her mind. After all, In a year, she would be walking with her son or daughter. Suddenly, her joy and tenderness filled her, and the desire to pick the right words to announce the news to Dima. All the scenarios that came to her mind seemed stupid to her. And suddenly Dima is not happy. Of course, he was not against children, but this is someday, not in the foreseeable future. Alia assured her in the end, sitting in a taxi. First, Dima will need time to get used to the child's thoughts, and then he will definitely fall in love with him. A common thing. Although she was not at the very place where the children were, she said she was convinced. But she is always convinced in her right, so that does not mean anything. Natasha asked the taxi driver to stop at the supermarket for minutes' walk to Dima's house. She will wander around the store, will look at some delicious nonsense, and will think everything calmly. For some reason, she wanted something sweet with nuts and lipstick. She reached the counter with the Eastern sweets and looked through the eye-catching boxes. What more could she want? Then she heard voices from the counter, which seemed familiar. They were getting closer, and now it was impossible to confuse them. On the other side of the long row with sweets, her husband Dima was walking with his parents. What a coincidence! Natasha got used to the fact that Dima rarely meets his parents in his territory. He came to their family celebrations and important conversations. Suddenly, the whole family gathered in the 5-minute walk from his house to his favorite store. Natasha wanted to get a good moment to suddenly get into the conversation with a voice from behind the wall, and add to the evening of unbridled fun with his sudden appearance. But suddenly I heard the voice of Dima's mother. Dima, choose, don't dig anymore. I'm tired of wandering here. Then better tell me what to take. You won't speed up the matter with grumbling. Dima, but this is your child. We saw him once. You used to buy these duty gifts yourself, all these 3 years. Masha, we're in no hurry. Don't push him. We'll stay longer. The voice of Dima's father, who heard the tired annoyance, was heard. The guy has a wedding in a week. He's in a hurry, and his mother must understand. It's good if he continues to pay the child's alimony after the wedding. He's not a millionaire to make gifts. Let her get tired and find a new one. She's paid for it, and she's sitting there, sitting straight. Dad, well, a penny-soft toy from the supermarket won't really ruin me. And son, I'll talk about the reduction in child costs. Yes, Dima agreed. As they say, the structure of my expenses is changing. Yes, take this bear and let's go. Mom almost happily got over it. Natasha clung to the stand with praise. The boxes were spinning in front of our eyes. What a disgusting, stinking smell of these sweets. Or does it smell like glue from cheap toys on the other side of the rack? When my head became a little clearer, the last saving thought came to it. What if it's not them? There are few similar voices and strange coincidences in life. I need to check. Natasha, careful, without going out to the middle of the passage between the rows, slipped towards the cash register. She stopped a little away behind a round stand with postcards. A sharp vision left her no hope. At cash register number was Dima with his parents. In the right hand of Natasha's fiancé, carelessly taken behind the ear, the soft bear of the stupid mustard color was sad and flustered. Who had just come up with the idea of sewing a toy with such material? Alia reacted to the serious problems of the business, trying not to show emotions. And usually Natasha was supported by this and inspired by the confidence that everything would work out. Now everything was the other way around. The calmness of the sisters seemed monstrous to Natasha. Alia quietly drove out of the kitchen, the one who had managed to return from Stasa's work, and let her cry on a small sofa near the window, periodically bringing her a cup of green tea. Drink, drink, she quietly demanded. Natasha obediently drank tea, which seemed bitter to her, like a grass grain of cough that her grandmother forced to drink in her childhood. It was scary. Her beloved Demulia, for whom she was going to marry, turned out to be a completely unfamiliar person who whose life she knew nothing about. She came up with everything about him, and he was happy. Everything collapsed in one evening, and nothing in the world changed. So Stas came back from her new job and wanted to eat, and her sister gave her husband a plate of cold chicken and slowly pushed the door again. The world collapsed only for one Natasha. When she was crying, it was even somehow easier. And when the tears dried up, the very mortal yearning rolled. Alya hugged her, stroked her hair on her back. From these warm touches, her usual voice returned to Natasha, and she asked her sister, Alya, help me to tell everyone invited that there will be no wedding. And please tell him the same thing, and that I don't want to see him. In general, categorically. Natusik, I understand. It's so bad for you now, but I won't live for you all my life. Let me call Mom now that you're staying overnight at our place. I'll tell her that I'm tired and fell asleep at our place. You'll take a vacation from the job, and I will too. And tomorrow we'll sleep as much as we can. Stasik will go to work. Let's sit and calmly think about everything. Do you agree, my dear? Of course, Natasha agreed. She just wouldn't have had enough strength to leave her sister's apartment, leaving her suddenly in different city. She was watching without any hesitation, as Alya arranged for her a royal bed, let herself go to sleep, and indeed soon fell asleep in a heavy, disturbing sleep. This sleep was called by the grandmother, as if she fell into a pit of spiders. And now her granddaughter Natasha has come to understand what it means. Natasha's idea of hiding from Dima and Alya is decisively denied. But you have to agree that this is a kindergarten, or some cheap TV show. You, on the contrary, have to talk to him as quickly as possible and find out everything. Otherwise, you will suffer for a long time because of this disagreement. You come up with some strange explanations, and then you listen to what he will tell you. And most importantly, how? One can be said for sure. He was going to conclude a legal marriage with you, and now he is going to do it. And if he has some kind of calculation in his head, then it is definitely not material. He does not acquire any good except you. My opinion was banal. I thought you would not agree to have business with him if you found out that he has a child. Listen to what the mother of the child will say. Why did you break up? Who is to blame, according to his opinion? You understand. How a person responds to his former ones can tell a lot about himself. By the way, he never told you about his former ones, did he? Yes, nothing in particular, Natasha confirmed. I somehow decided to ask, and he smiled so kindly and answered that there was nothing serious before me. Any nonsense that is not worth mentioning. But now he definitely won't turn away from this conversation. He'll have to reveal his real face. I can't even call him. I just see how stupid I'll look in this conversation. Well, how are you going to live? Asked Vitolya. Well, write him a message and set up a meeting in the park at our house. This is so that I don't worry that you will drag yourself home from the other end of the city in disheveled feelings. I will be waiting for you. And you're not the one who's going to look like a fool today. And the park is not a restaurant. There are only dogs who don't care how you look. You just need to hear what he says. Look at his reaction. And then we'll think about what to do with the wedding. Let's be consistent. Yeah, Natasha was nodding. Just don't tell Mom anything yet. Alya, I don't know how she's going to survive all this. I'm starting my pregnancy. Don't imagine it now. Stop your imagination. Don't waste time and write a message. I promised to take my mother for myself. Natasha walked the park with a turtle step. She was very angry, but she could not overcome fear and confusion. What if Dima said now how she could trust him? And the truth is, what a fool you have to be to trust without a word. Trust and plan a beautiful wedding yourself. No, you can't screw yourself up not to get angry. Alya spent half an hour on her beautiful makeup and asked not to smear it. Her elder sister is always like this. She makes fun of her, laughs, and in fact, she is very worried. She noticed Dima and gave it to her. The tall young man was talking at the beginning of the Central Park alley behind a small shopping center. It was not only in her sharp vision. Her favorite was a special, kind-hearted, leisurely walk, which she immediately penetrated with confidence. Leisurely walk seemed to her for a whole year a reflection of reliability, calm, and warmth. She came up with everything herself. To the surprise of Natasha and contrary to the predictions of her sister, Dima did not look. He looked at the bride without much excitement, thinking sadly, "Natick, you must understand me. I would tell you about this case, but later. Now I was just very afraid to lose you. Well, yes, I'm a cowardly fool and I'm wrong. But I beg you very much, just forgive me and that's it. 5 years ago, I was such a goblin green to you. I hung out with my classmate in our top city clubs all night and on weekends. I met my son there. The honey blonde, everything with her, dancing with fire, a bunch of guys around, and everything. In general, a student's dream. I thought I fell in love, and when she suddenly pointed me out of everyone, I was in the seventh heaven. Oh my, such a fire-burning star went with me. I wouldn't have my own apartment at that moment, and nothing like that would have happened. Inna sang so tenderly and pitifully in my ear. Mother and father are drinking. They have always had inadequate and aggressive company in their guests. They are scared. Where would they run away from all this? I offered in euphoria, live with me. She asked me so modestly, oh yes, it is possible. Oh, you are so good. In general, if some Cinderella was kicked out of the house, she would look like that. The idyll continued for a month somewhere. Inna washed my apartment, cooked food for my arrival from work. I didn't go anywhere except for the shops. In the evening, only murmur with me. But this game was not long enough. Inna was not used to living a normal life and quickly got bored of previous adventures. I was promoted at work. Free money appeared, and it was too late to come home and I was tired. She was taken to the clubs again. She assured that it would be a clean break until she found a job. By that time I could have guessed that she was not going to look for her. But I did not guess. Her mother had time to leave her father or her father, and I and my mother were going to nightclubs together. And one day in her apartment her mom and lover were found. I returned from a business trip earlier, by night train. Do you think it's very pleasant? Inna herself was alone, but it was clear that a new friend left my apartment quite recently. But then I couldn't stand it anymore. You're throwing up, I say. I have a preton. Mom was also offended. Can you imagine? What a rude guy you have, Anachka. In general, they broke up against all this. She returned to her mother's apartment. I visited her often at first, and then less often, and in a couple of months I didn't really remember. And suddenly she called, I'm pregnant, and your child. Natasha shrugged with these dim words. What irritation does he talk about children with? Suddenly, that ridiculous cheap bear appeared before my eyes, carelessly grabbed by the ear. Shaking in despair, she asked Dima, who had been silent for a long time, in a smooth voice. And then, she said, I then consulted with the lawyer and told her that if after the birth of the child, the DNA test on fatherhood confirms that the child is mine, I will pay for it. Of course, by the white salary. So let her think if she should give birth or not. I'd better give money for a break to solve the problem right away. But she's stubborn for some reason. She'll give birth. I don't know why she needed it. Her lifestyle is not very suitable for it. I warned her that I don't plan to marry her anyway. But I don't love her, and I'm not going to spend my whole life with her. We talked calmly like civilized people and agreed on everything. Well, yes, the child turned out to be mine, unfortunately. But Inna is not a stupid girl, and she should have understood perfectly well that someday, when I have a family, she will have nothing left except the official penny elements. Why her? Dima? Unexpectedly, for herself, asked Natasha. This is for the child, not for her. And what is his or her name? Natick, why do you need all these details? What can it solve for you? Of course, I love you because you are so kind and nice, but you are a completely different person. You don't even know what the life of girls like her consists of. Marrying girls like you. Men only have fun with girls like Inna. Yeah, that's convenient, I guess. Natalia, what's so convenient about you? If you give importance to any past nonsense when we have a wedding in a week, well, I swear to you that I have no more secrets from you. No, don't, replied Natasha in a hurry. Do you often see your child? Well, it starts. Dima immediately confused his irritated friends. Nat, well, let's not discuss this problem. I will solve it, I promise. It will not cause you any inconvenience. It's not convenient, Natasha repeated with an echo. You talk about your child like a broken part in a car. Natasha, why always complicate everything? I said I would solve the problem, so I will solve it. But you didn't think you were getting married to a saint. Such stories happen to every second young fool. Now this is a long-gone stage for me. I love you and I'm sure that we will have a prosperous family. Let me take you somewhere. I know a nice little fish restaurant nearby. They serve your favorite shrimps with honey and such a delicious sauce. You look amazing today, but very sad and tired. Dima hugged Natasha behind the waist, but she suddenly moved aside. He raised his eyebrows in anger. I understand everything. You're still offended. Okay, let me take you to your sister or home then. I can even do it silently if you don't want to talk. And tomorrow we'll meet and talk calmly. I'm sure that tomorrow you'll look at everything differently. Maybe, Natasha replied in a distant voice. She suddenly wanted to talk, argue, find out something. I'd like to teleport to a cozy apartment for Alina. Natasha, what have you decided? Her voice was taken out of Dima's grip, in which there was a bad, hidden irritation. He had never been irritated by her before. It must be because she never was. Such an obedient, comfortable bride. He doesn't even doubt that their wedding will take place. Dima, let me just go to my sister right now, she calmly said. I won't persuade you. Goodbye, dear. See you tomorrow. Dima replied and gently poked her cheek. When they returned to the hall, Natasha no longer cried to her own surprise. They talked calmly with her sister, even laughed a little over some nonsense, and in a couple of hours she went home. Mom and Dad stayed at the dacha. The electrician worked there until late, fixed the wiring, and they decided that they would go to work from there tomorrow. Everything is going well. She is not ready to talk to her parents yet. There are too many things for one day. We need to come to our senses somehow. Only 3 days, and she has a vacation. Natasha suggested that he should go to the wedding, and now he will have to get up very early too. She was lucky at work too. The head of the department was teaching a new colleague, and she was completely out of touch with Natasha, out of touch with Rasprosov about the preparation for the wedding. For now, the only pleasant little things, Natasha thought with sad gratitude. Only slightly her head was spinning after lunch, reminding her of her situation. After leaving the office, she noticed a girl she didn't know. Seeing Natasha, the girl immediately went to her. A bright, green-eyed blonde with a beautiful female figure. A little older, taller and denser than Natasha, friendly and slightly confused. Hello, are you Natasha Simonova? Hello, yes. If you come to me, the working day is over, but I will listen to you if it's not long. But it's not convenient to go to the office stairs. Let's go to the cafe. It's 2 steps away. I'm not at work, the girl hurried to clarify. I'm Inna, who has a child from Dima. I really need to talk to you. Inna spoke without a call and with a smile, simply and politely. Let's go to the cafe. Natasha repeated her proposal, and she even managed to smile slightly. Natasha called her mother that she would have to stay at work for an hour. The girls sat down at the table, ordered coffee and, waiting for no hostility, looked at each other. Natasha seemed to be a gray mouse against the background of Inna, but for some reason she was not worried now. You are beautiful, Inna said. as if reading Natasha's thoughts. I'm just A. Can I start with business? Of course, Natasha nodded. So, I live in my mother's apartment with my son alone. Mom moved to another one. Last night Dima came to me without a call, angry as hell. He started yelling. He woke Vanechka up and scared him. Vanechka is our son. Look. Inna found a photo in her cell phone and stretched her phone out. Dima, a smaller copy, was sitting in the park on the top of the pony and smiled a little scared. Good, Natasha said, pulling the phone back. Yes, I'm actually glad I have it. Dmitri, our, must have managed to talk about me a bunch of nasty things, and basically it's all true. But I love my own stink. So Dima came, started to shout. I didn't understand what he was doing. He said that the gifts and money were over, that everything was over. He was tired of me. He wouldn't come anymore. I'd put the items on the card and I wouldn't see him again. I don't like him anymore. It's just a habit and for the sake of my son. But he doesn't know about it. He has no doubt that the Earth doll and all the girls are delighted with him. I ask him why he is so hysterical in such a place. And I hear the news. The bride found out that he has a child. I say, well, she found out not from me. Natasha, I'm not cruel at all. I treat people well, if they did me no harm. I was not going to look for you and call you for a conversation. I tell our Dima, it's his own fault. It was necessary to tell about the child right away. As soon as I realized that you and your Natasha are serious. And then he, you see, hides from his bride the existence of his son, and for some reason is guilty of Inna. I ask then, about the fact that we are still sleeping, the bride did not recognize? No? Well, then you have hope for reconciliation, and I will gladly stop all kinds of relationships with you. It's time, and the truth is that, in general, he yelled, released the steam and left. I drank cognac and a glass of water and went asleep. I'm lying down, but I can't fall asleep. It's hard to breathe. I think, here's another girl. Our Dimiel spoils her life. Well, okay, but he has a child from past relationships. So many have such children. But I have long announced that I am going to get married. But still, he was shaking all this time to me. Recently, a breakup was made from him. He yelled that she should think about it, but still gave money. I'm lying and thinking. Okay, I can understand when in a few years they start a mistress, when they get a job and all that. But when the bride's fiancé cheats, it's disgusting for me. And then I suddenly thought, why shouldn't I stop it? Demulia somehow talked between business, where you work, and I came. Natasha, just don't think that I have a plan to return him by telling you about his filth, so that you can leave him. Honestly, I don't need him for nothing. I have a new guy coming. He's a bit older, but he's calm and kind. He has no children. Maybe he'll be nicer to Vanya than his father. So now, I'll try to make everything work out for him. So I decided to meet you just to make sure that Dima didn't spoil your life. And if it's really honest, I wanted to take revenge on him. For all his relations. We should have thought about it before, but it turned out as it did. Natasha took a sip of cappuccino, which had cooled down long ago, forgotten on the table under her nose, and asked, Inna, did he really treat you like that you should be avenged for it? Well, listen, let's do it. I can tell you how everything was with us, and you judge for yourself how you like it. We met him at the club. Yes, I like to have fun, and I had a lot of boys by that time. But I never hid it. I never pretended to be anyone else. My mother is the same, so I'm not so fond of this side of life. I don't harm anyone by this evil, but I still want it, like any girl, bright and long love from someone. And so it seemed to me for a short time that Dimka is what she needs. I let myself fall in love. She didn't notice how quickly she lost control of the situation. She thought, even if I change something in life for his sake, I will prepare him, give him comfort, take care of him. She didn't recognize herself, imagine. And his love and tenderness lasted literally for 10 days. Then he became arrogant, and in every way emphasized that he picked me up, almost from the panel. He knew perfectly well that this was far from the case. But he liked to humiliate me, to feel his superiority. It hurt so much, you can't imagine, Natasha. At first I didn't like the look. I thought, he gets tired at work and all that. I already understood that my prince turned out to be not real, but I couldn't fall in love yet. And after another insult, I decided to try. I went back to nightclubs, drank too much, and deafened the pain. Mom always said it helped. One day, we brought the guys to Dima's apartment. I see that it's dirty and ugly for you, right? I wouldn't do that now either, but then, whatever happened, happened. Well, he kicked me out. In general, he did the right thing. I don't even argue here. And when I kicked him out, I stopped going out. I got a job. And anyway, I thought about him every day, even though I knew what he was like. When I found out that I was pregnant, even some ridiculous hopes were that everything would be fine and change. Naturally, nothing like that happened, and I still decided to give birth. I actually love children. I have such a thing in me. For whom to live? Otherwise, I would be taken nowhere. No, but on the one hand, I understand Dima's anger. He did not plan any children with me, and here are the expenses for the elements. I do not say that I am right. But Vanechka is not to blame for anything, and Dima has always treated him like a father. Even some fathers, I know, treat better. But since our meetings continued, under the good mood of Dima, for me, it's not superfluous. I'm just a cashier in a cheap store. I'll tell you my opinion, Natasha, and you decide for yourself. He's cruel, self-satisfied, loves obedience, doesn't put women in anything. I'm sorry, but I see why he decided to marry you. You're soft, calm. It's easier for him to control you. And for his self-esteem, what is needed? The wife is beautiful and educated from a good family. You can see it right away. You are a valuable prize, Natasha. He would never get married to someone like me. It's hard for me to manage. It's problematic to brag. You'll be fine, Inna. You'll see. You're strong. And I'm pregnant with Dima. Natasha sighed quietly. Olia would surely say that she is a fool. But I wanted to trust this honest girl, who is used to live a completely different life than Natasha and her friends. Will you give birth? I can't get rid of pregnancy. Well, that's right. It's okay, Natasha. We'll grow up. I have only one mother, and she is busy with her life. And she has no extra money and nothing. It turns out that I have to grow up a stinking woman. And you have a good family, right? So they will help and won't object. I'll tell you, you'll find a companion for yourself with the child. My eye is swollen. Our Dima won't suit you in A. And you can be sure of me, said Inna. I won't tell Dima about your child. You decide for yourself whether to tell him or not. Thank you. We finished our cold coffee, ordered hot coffee, went outside, slowly started to walk around. Inna said, I understand that we won't be friends. We are too different, but let's exchange our phones. Maybe you'll need to know something about child affairs, or the nanny will need a child for a few hours. You have a working grandmother, don't you? I'm happy to sit here. The kids are attracted to me, and I just want to know how you're doing. I'm curious. I like to collect all kinds of life stories. Come on, Natasha agreed. I also want to know that you're doing well. They were going to say goodbye, but before them a black car suddenly stopped. Dima flew out of it. He hung on Natasha. Mother says you were late for work. I want to meet you. And now I see the picture in oil. The matryoshka has come to you, and you are still in love with her. Natasha, you can't go down to such a place. What are you going to tell this girl? Send her. Right away, it would be a right decision. She came to talk about me. She couldn't bear that the other people were happy and she was on the run. Get in the car, let's go home. Dima, I'll get home myself, and there will be no wedding. I was wrong. I'm sorry. It's better to part ways now. then to get divorced later. You think you've done enough? Dima Kini turned around abruptly, raised his hand, and hit her in the face. Natasha felt how dark it was in her eyes, and the thirst was coming to her throat. I sat on the asphalt to avoid falling down, and I saw that 2 military students were running to them, who were across the street from the office center where she worked. Girls, any problems? Yes, Inna was convincingly calling. Guys, come with us. This inadequate one is beating me, because I told his fiancé that he was pretending. The young guys willingly turned to Dima, but he reacted instantly. He turned around and silently quickly fell into the car. The cadets, loud and despondent, giggled after him. It was not interesting for them to associate with such a thing. On the way home, Natasha called Alya, and Mom and Dad decided to tell everything that same evening. When Natasha got home, Alya was already there and prepared for her parents as promised. Natasha didn't have to tell anything. Her father was silent. He always kept silent for a long time when he was very upset or distracted. His silence never looked oppressive and didn't bother anyone. It was just a way of thinking. Mom, on the contrary, was taking a lot of talking. Oh, girls, you are so beautiful, good and friendly. It's not so often you meet now. Everything is fine with us, and it will be even better. It's just life. Natalia, I will have a good reason to quit this boring job. I will retire by the time my grandson or granddaughter appears, and I won't stay at work for another day. I'll earn the way I dreamed with my favorite knitting. Exclusive handwork is now in trend. Right, my daughter? I'll be a classic old-fashioned granny with knitting at the cradle with my granddaughter. What do you think? Will this role suit me? I think I'll have a granddaughter. With the wedding guests, everything was fine without Natasha. Nobody was against her expressing sympathy, unnecessary questions, or obsessive encouragement. Her close friends approved her decision, but she didn't tell Dima about the child. In the family, such a decision caused disputes. Alya was on the sister's side, and Mom and Dad believed that Dima should know that he will have another child. Judging by the first example, the children who are not planned to them do not please Dima. I don't think I can change my mind. Mom and Dad looked over and never came back to this topic. Natasha showed an unexpected firmness of character for her. Of course, it didn't go without unpleasant moments. Mom Dima called for a long time. She had to tell everyone. Natasha, Natasha's mother and sister. All her monologues were reduced to one. Natasha must show her female wisdom and forgive Dima. Dima suffers a lot, feels guilty with all the fevers of his soul. He has revised his views on relationships, worked out all the mistakes, and so on. According to his mother, Dima himself has never declared himself, only because he is wildly ashamed of Natasha. So Natasha must now take the first step, if she ever loved him at all. Delicate Natasha and her mother could have listened to these sensitive monologues for a long time, but at last Alya put an end to everything. Maria Vladimirovna, in the same expressive tone, said, having heard this speech about the first step, Natasha, nothing should happen to your Dmitri. They broke up, and not because of her, but for her happiness. Take this fact. I really sympathize with you, and wish you good luck. After these words, Alya immediately dropped the phone, and Maria Vladimirovna will not call back to make the whole Semenov family feel better. Life went on in its own way. Natasha's pregnancy did not go too smoothly. She had to stay in the hospital. Not only her relatives and friends visited her. One day, Inna came. She changed noticeably. She changed from blonde to a burning brunette, and she got a soft and elegant look. Here is the master of transformation, Natasha thought with some admiration and even envy. It was clear that Inna's life had changed in a pleasant way for her. A man of years old came with her, calm and gentle, with thoughtful eyes, in a neat and respectable clothes. Inna kindly sent him for coffee to the hospital coffee machine and immediately winked at Natasha. How do you like my Igor? He's a nice man. It's clear that you like him. So I try to keep the mark and match it. And it doesn't even bother me. Can you imagine? Igor, this is such an indescribable kindness. He has a small computer company. It's been a long time since he was a student. He didn't make millions, but he has enough for a normal life. He is happy to work with Vanya. He says it's cool for him himself. He can't have children, and he is from a big family. He had 3 younger sisters, and he got used to working with them. I've done so much for Vanya. And all this is not like a demonstration presentation, like, here's how noble I am, but somehow, of course, I didn't think it would happen. I don't want to go back to my previous life at all. If you laugh, it seems to me that I even love him. If even out of nobleness I fell in love, what's the difference? He married me. And this, despite the fact that I told him everything about myself. He said that now it doesn't matter anymore. If we are good together, we will think about the future and not get stuck in the past. That's exactly what he said. I remembered. I said that I agree. Can you imagine? He is even going to adopt Vanya, although I never talked about it. He wants it himself. He says it is important that he has a son. Called Dad. That's the news I have. That's the nonsense, Natasha. Natasha looked at this guy from the hospital ward for a long time, and she gradually felt some kind of warm calm. She noticed that Dima was slowly and painlessly forgetting. She became completely uninterested on one fine day. What he was doing, what he was thinking, what he was feeling, whether he regretted that everything turned out this way, whether he found a new bride or lover. She didn't feel anger, grief, or resentment. She just felt relieved that she didn't let herself get lost. Sometimes she thought that she would feel something, finding a trait in Dima's child, and realized that it wouldn't stop her from loving the child, as Inna loves her own smelly girl. Inna also didn't see Dima since that day. She said that she would be very happy when he finds out that he no longer needs to pay money for the child for the reason of his adoption. I imagine how he will be amazed when he sees that someone can do it. This is how Inna smiled. In April, Natasha had a healthy girl. She called her daughter Ksyusha. Inna married Igor in June. She invited Natasha to the wedding, but Ksyusha was still too young and only ate her mother's milk. So Natasha only managed to come to congratulate the young people at the registry office. Inna married a white dress and 2 white lilies in high-heeled hair. Well, how do you like me? She asked Natasha, knowing the answer herself. Gorgeous. She smiled and happily confirmed to Natasha. Now I'll tell you quickly while Igor and Vanya meet their brother and family. Inna whispered, glaring with happy eyes. I hurried to be glad that I would never see Dima again. A normal person would have already been busy with his life, but Dima could not calm down that he was humiliated. He found out through someone that Igor and I were serious and that we were planning to get married, and decided to take revenge on me in the same way. He came to Igor's office for a direct conversation. I began to write down who I was and what I imagined myself to be, like from the solidarity of men. And I befriended Nadia, Igor's office manager. She told me everything in detail. What dirt Dima was pouring on me. Nadia, although she did not see their faces from the reception, literally heard everything. Igor says he hadn't listened for a long time, laughed so. He didn't expect such a trick from an IT guy. I myself was surprised at one time that Igor was interested in the youth of Eastern unification. He does it now, sometimes, when there is time. And Vanya is learning a little. Son doesn't leave him. Can you imagine? That's my nonsense, Natasha. Your Ksyushka will grow up a little. Come visit us. I'll send you the address and how to get there. Oh, listen. Even my mother is shocked that I found such a husband. He begs me to behave myself and not to spoil anything. I'm already laughing. Mom, can't you see that I'm getting married out of love? So be sure. I won't have to pretend to be a good wife. Ksyusha grew up alive and smiling, grew up very quickly. Natasha found that she had no interest in dedicating her child almost all her time. Mom and Alya sometimes literally kicked her out of the house, having fun with her girlfriends, chatting in the cafe, or watching a movie. Natasha agreed that she could not lock herself at home with the child, but still the first of all friends hurried home at any meeting. Mom and sister were not hiding their joy when Natasha's maternity leave was over. Oh, well, at least you'll have some interests again, except for children. You should have been a nurse, Alya laughed. At this time, she was expecting a child. She was in her 4th month, and she claimed that she would definitely not be such an abnormal mom. Let Stas also fully participate in care and upbringing. He will love his child more. Natasha had no doubt that Stas would definitely take part. It is quite possible, and he will have to get up at night to the baby. Oh, Alya had fun. Do you know how I sleep at night? I can be pulled out on the highway together with the bed and carried on the trailer past all the repair work, and I won't even turn over to another side. One day, walking in the park with a stroller in the company of 2 same young mothers, Mama Dima. She went to meet her, talking on the phone, and suddenly she patted Natasha with a look. Oh, I'll call you back, she said. She dropped the phone and jumped up to Natasha with a slender smile, looking into the wheelchair. Oh, who is this pretty one here? Is it yours, or are you working for the nanny now? This is my daughter, replied Natasha with all her might, trying to hold back her laughter, looking at the hypocritical play of Maria Vladimirovna. Beautiful, said Maria Vladimirovna, with a little tongue-tied. Yes, I see that Natalia quickly calmed down after the farewell with my son. Once again I am convinced that in life everything is going only for the best. It's good that my Dmitri didn't marry you. Goodbye, Maria Vladimirovna, replied Natasha with an indescribable smile. Who is this? For some reason, one of my friends asked Maria Vladimirovna, with a look of her eyes. This is my missing daughter-in-law. Natasha laughed with pleasure. How nice it must be for you that her friends understood that her missing daughter-in-law was her happiness. You can only be happy for her. Yes, I am very happy for her. She is absolutely right. Everything is for the best. But how long can you live like this, Oleg? Well, you tell him, soon. The head of the department was put 2 years ago. You can and need to think about the family. It would tidy up his life. These girls are just enough for a little bit of a virus. You'll see. This is the end. Masha, don't be a bitch. With lazy irritation, husband waved off the boring licking of Maria Vladimirovna. He's an adult boy. If you haven't noticed yet, she'll figure it out herself. You want me to teach him about diseases? I'm not a dispenser. You always didn't care about your son. You don't care about anyone but yourself, Oleg. And it always has been like that. And I'm not surprised at all that we have such a son. Who else could it be? He would have been married to Natasha 5 years ago, and I wouldn't have been able to make up with his temperament and mood swings. And he was not smart enough to properly present the situation with the child in advance. And I told you. And you both were just waving. Natalia had such a temper. She was very good at it. If you told everything right, you would regret that he was so cleverly surrounded by fingers that he pays alimony. Do you know what kind of girls are now? Everyone remembers that they did not find themselves in the dump. Even this Inna. They say she lives very well married. Some shopkeeper of professional cosmetics opened a salon for her. Of course, a small. To not be left alone. And now they don't care. They are girls. She puts herself in such a way because she is beautiful and a family with a successful career. She met our Dima a couple of times and told her mother that it was not her option. She understood it right away, just didn't want to offend her colleague. Good girl. No. Can you imagine? This was said to me in an open text. Of course, you will endure it from the beginning. But the fact is that our prospective bride, Pryzolka, doesn't like me too much. Even, year-old Oleg, do you hear me at all? Yeah, you're right as always. The husband bought off with a common excuse. He didn't have the mood to argue with his wife today. If she goes into open hysterics, then you can answer more harshly. The doctor said that he needs to protect his nerves, so I'll have to learn to look at many problems philosophically. This cardiologist was praised by the choir by all the high-ranking friends of Oleg Evgenievich, so he decided to seriously listen to the recommendations. I'll talk to my son Masha, he promised calmly. Yes, we need to talk. They will go to the sauna with their son on Friday, and when they let the girls go, then they will talk calmly over a glass of green tea. By the way, the doctor said that it's time to slow down with the girls, but it's good not to tie them up completely. Maria Vladimirovna sighed and continued to pour out Indian spices into beautiful little jars. If at her time it was not considered that at a certain age it was necessary to be married and keep a family, so that they would not be considered a failure, she would not continue to live with her Oleg all her life to endure its annoyance, neglect, endless treachery. This was called to show female wisdom. It turned out that for everyone you should be wise, for yourself only stupid. Actually, this is happiness where you need to talk to your son first. I have not given her peace for a week, and one guess that she did not want to share with Oleg. He will again say that his wife has fantasies of boredom. Dima's department was praised for the company's half-year end meeting. They gave a decent bonus, and he was in a good mood. After learning about this, Maria Vladimirovna was inspired and invited her son to visit, choosing the day when her husband was going fishing with his friends. Mom happily noted from the threshold that her son's good mood had not disappeared yet. He even figured out how to bring her a present, a bottle of expensive cognac and her favorite cake. How nice, Sonny, she said. Dima was surprised. If Mom is so nice, she must need something from him. Everything is for you, Mom. They talked about work, about management, about ways to like the general director even more, then about the plans for vacation. Mom smoothly translated the conversation into personal. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you something interesting. I haven't been to the center for a long time, and then a friend invited me to run around the shops, to sit in a cafe in an entertainment complex, well, you know, in Orion. And there, on the upper floor, there are some children's circles, a master class, a dance studio, and so Nina and I sit in a sushi bar, and on the stairs, right across, mothers and children go down. The dance class is over. The girls in the air skirts jump up. Still thinking about dancing, lovely? And I see. Your ex Natasha leads her daughter by the handle. By the way, Natasha herself just looks great. She is clearly one of those who has been good for years. Everything is so fragile, but somehow brighter. She painted her hair in some kind of copper noble color, and she is very good at it. She looks very attractive, but she's not. And the girl is also very elegant. And it's clear that she's not a capricious, nice child. And I understand, Dima, that she looks very similar to you. I wouldn't have thought of that myself, but it's just too obvious. I compared the photos in social networks, and other Natalia's photos are open pages. I never understood such security, but I found it useful now. And if we compare the photo of Natasha and Ksenia and Vanya's photo at the same age, it's definitely the brother and sister. Here, I saved it on my phone. Look, it's definitely your daughter. I feel my own blood. Maria Vladimirovna put a tablet with a photo of Kalash on her nose, which she had made in advance from 2 photos. Dima slipped a look at the screen. Mom, I believe you. What do you want me to do with this information? I've been thinking about it all week after that meeting. At first I was thinking that Natalia was not as modest as we thought about her. But it's only because of you. In fact, she is not one of those girls who enter random relationships immediately after breaking up with her fiancé. She loved you very much. It was obvious. If I, your mother, recognized it, then it is for sure. But she is very serious about everything. So it can only be your daughter and not anyone else's. And think, she could have acted like Inna once, and you would have paid the child money now. She didn't want it that way. Not everyone would have done that. What a pride. Think about it. You cheated before the wedding, and you don't need anything from me. I think I even understand her in some way. But I think, now, when time has passed and you've grown up, you could try to start all over again. What's wrong with that? There are not many such cases. You just have to be softer. Find the right approach. You have a common child, and that's not a small thing. Trust me. Is it really indifferent to you? Mom, I'm begging you. Let's close this topic once and for all. How can you not understand? No approach will help. I can't earn her respect after everything that happened. She knows too much about me to respect me. Do you understand? Maria Vladimirovna was not so easy to confuse and make her step back if she saw the prospects. She was already happy that Natasha agreed to meet her in this cafe with the tables, and you listened to her. Natasha listened, carefully tilting her head, and Maria Vladimirovna was easily picking up words. Natasha, Dima still thinks about you. They are fools in their youth. What can you do? But he said that he would never have anyone better than you. He is sure. Thank you for not denying that he is your child. My granddaughter is so beautiful. I want to get to know her as soon as possible. Maria Vladimirovna, I don't want to offend you. Therefore, I will tell you honestly what I think. The child is from him, but it is only my child. No matter how much you want, Demi doesn't need his children. At least, those that exist. Maybe it will change someday. And I'm getting married in a month. Now it's for sure. I met a very close person, very happy. And Ksyusha, how is she? She will be fine with her in-laws. Be sure, I thought about it. Without any hesitance, replied Natasha. 10 minutes later, as Natasha warned, a groom came to pick her up. Maria Vladimirovna looked through the glass door of the cafe. As the young man got out of the car, hurriedly went to meet Natasha as he threw his jacket over her shoulders. It was already cold in the evening. They got into the car and left. And she didn't want to go home.